everyone, and welcome to the Blackwell Podcast, where we love Life is Strange more than Daniel loves sketching Rachel Amber. I'm here with Joey this week. Say hello.
Hello.
And what are we going to be talking about this week?
Well, Daniel would have been a good person to consort with because we are going to be talking about Rachel Amber.
Oh yes, it's going to be quite a interesting episode because in the past episodes we didn't really focus on one character before. Like in episode 1, we just talked about our favorite characters in general and why we love the game. Second off, episode 5, so it's going to be kind of an interesting episode this week.
It will be.
Yes, and of course we do have the weekly segment Everyday Heroes and a little announcement afterwards.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that because that'll be interesting. No,
and we're not going to tell you where it's at because you're not going to skip to it. You're going to have to listen to us talk.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so where would you like to start off with Rachel, Joey?
Well, let's start off with how we're first introduced to her, which is missing persons poster, rather.
In the hallway.
Right. So this is kind of like what sparks this little arc in the story.
It's quite important
it's not
as well.
Little.
Yeah.
It's not a little arc, but so you find the poster and you don't really know anything about her other than what it says.
Posters, really.
Right. And so she went missing about 3 months or so.
22nd of April.
22nd of April.
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, I think that's what Chloe said anyway.
Okay. So the bulk of the game is spent trying to find out what happens to Rachel. That's Chloe's main motivation. Of course, if you're familiar with the podcast by now, you know that we are spoiler heavy.
Yes, very spoiler.
So if you do not know what has happened to Rachel yet, you might want to hold off until you do.
Or listen to Mountains by Message of Bears, because after you play episode 4, you won't be able to listen to that song ever again.
Right.
Because we all find out that pretty much Rachel died by what we assume is Nathan's hand until, like we talked about last week in episode 5. Well, we didn't really talk about it, did we? About how Rachel died. Something that we kind of skipped over.
No, I think we just hinted at it.
You know,
right.
That she died by a accidental overdose by Nathan.
Right.
Because Mr. Jefferson was kind of like a mentor when he was just really exploiting Nathan for his money, if I'm correct.
Right.
And Nathan wanted to impress Mr. Jefferson, so he tried to drug Rachel whilst accidentally overdosing her, and that's how she ended up in the junkyard.
Right. And it kind of brings all the characters together too, in kind of this like this very Twin Peaks-esque, because Rachel has a pretty strong relation with pretty much every character in the game in some way or another. So a lot of this will be speculation, just because there aren't a lot of facts. So
I think the only relationship that she doesn't have is with Max, really, because she never actually was in direct contact with Rachel. And we pretty much learn about that later on.
Right. So Rachel, you find out, is dead, was killed. She was very good friends with Nathan, very similar to the relationship that Nathan and Victoria have now. At least that's what it's alluded to. I believe Nathan mentions, she was like one of the only people that was really there for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of where does the line start with this? Because you can think, did Nathan kind of introduce Rachel to Jefferson? Did Rachel already know Jefferson? It's could go either way, really.
Yeah. I mean, if we knew like a little bit more about before Rachel went missing, like her relationships with Jefferson, because it's not really touched on, really, is it? Within the game.
No, it's all just gossip mill stuff.
Yeah.
Victoria, of course, and I think who is it? Is it?
Stella, right?
It's not Brooke. Stella. Yeah, Stella mentions that.
She was sleeping with Jefferson.
Right, and also, you find that note, the letter from Rachel to Chloe, talking about how she met this kind of dangerous guy that she's interested in, and it never like fully confirms that it's Jefferson, but it leads you to believe that it is, and that would also make sense with him being dangerous.
And of
You
course,
picked up on that.
Yeah, it was confirmed during the wasn't it the Extra Life live stream that letter was talking about Jefferson?
Oh, was it?
I think so.
Okay. See, I missed that stream, so
Yeah, I only watched a small part of it. Very interesting though. It was for a good cause.
Yeah, I wish I'd watched it, but
yeah.
So yeah, okay, well then there you go. And then there's also Rachel's relationship with Frank.
Yeah, it's kind of like a love triangle there with Rachel, Frank, and the beans.
Yeah, I wonder if Rachel got jealous of Frank's beans at all.
See, with Frank, it's actually very interesting to think of the relationship with Rachel, because I think it was Nathan, right, that said that Rachel's only using Frank because of his drug supply.
Right.
And obviously she did take like drugs like Chloe, because they were kind of in that clique, I guess.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to think of that, but it's also nice to think it from Frank's point of view, that Rachel actually cared about him.
Right. And you get I would say, in my opinion at least, I think that Rachel's relationship with Frank is probably the closest to an actual, like, as you would think a traditional relationship would be. And more so, all the other Dylans were kind of not in the like boyfriend girlfriend sense, you also find letters to Frank from Rachel talking about how basically he freaked out on her with something, and so that's what makes me lead to believe that's probably the closest she had with like an actual relationship, with the exclusion, of course, with her relationship with Chloe, which so looking at it from a like literary standpoint, essentially Rachel Amber was a character foil to Chloe, and also a plot device of basically Chloe and Max, the vehicle for Chloe and Max to be reunited and to get closer together and all that.
Yeah.
But at its core, Rachel was essentially just a character foil to Chloe. There's a lot of I guess divisiveness on were Chloe and Rachel an actual item? Was Chloe kind of in a like unrequited love with it? So what do you think about their relationship?
Well, if you think about how Chloe felt after William was in the car accident, how Max moved to Seattle, like Chloe was just a wreck, and for Rachel to actually come into Chloe's life, and for Chloe to actually say that she saved her, and that she calls her like her angel and all that stuff. Honestly, right. And like even when they found Rachel's body, that Chloe said that she loved her, because it's kind of hard to interpret what sense she meant that by.
Hmm.
either as a friend or more than that, but still, it was really clear that Rachel and Chloe were really, really close. And
Right.
like even Justin said that, she was always hanging out with Chloe and all that stuff.
Right. And there's of course the plan that they had to run off to LA.
Yeah.
Then I guess what kind of adds the I don't know, I guess the wrench in that gear um is what the trucker mentions about, you know, Rachel trying to solicit a ride from him to
Oh
get
yeah.
to LA.
Hmm.
And it's like, so what was going on there? Was Rachel going to leave, you without telling Chloe?
Yeah.
Was there some sort of, and these are just the type of things that you can only speculate on, just because there's no
Confirmed.
hard and fast answer.
Yeah. Hard facts when it
Right.
comes to that kind of idea. Because yeah, just because Chloe and Rachel definitely wanted to go to LA. Well, Chloe definitely wanted to go with Rachel because they tried to save up the money, and even when you find the money in Blackwell, she says, "Oh, we can pay off for Frank and have a bit more for for that trip with
Right.
Rachel,"
Right.
which is, it's like even though she has no idea if Rachel's okay or not, she's still hoping.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I think she kind of was almost in a like just a state of denial that anything bad could have happened to Rachel.
Hmm.
I think she was more wanting to believe that Rachel had just gone off to LA or something, and I think that would have been easier for her.
Kind of like Rachel's parents.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she mentions about Rachel's parents, I think she was facing some of that too.
Hmm.
But then again, I mean, her whole thing was trying to find the answer to it. So
Yeah. It's kind of, well, not really cool, but it's kind of nice that we actually do get an answer to what happened to Rachel instead of just leaving it to a mystery that we never find out.
right. Yeah. That closure though. Okay. So that's like that. The scene where where Chloe finds Rachel, where Chloe and Max find Rachel's body.
Yeah.
That was that's probably one of the like.
It's the most powerful scenes in the entire game. Right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That was like I loved that whole episode and I loved the whole game up until then, but that was for me really sent it over the top. I was like, this is better than any movie I've watched. Like this is just like my favorite media, and but it's also like the hardest I've ever cried at a video game in my entire life too.
Yeah, I
So
cried
it's
harder.
extremely moving.
Yeah, I cried harder in that scene that well, in the Walking Dead season 1 ending. Spoilers to anyone that hasn't played that game, where your character is dying and Clementine, an 8-year-old girl, you have to tell her either to shoot you, stop, we becoming infected, just to leave you there. Just leave her on her own. It's terrible, but this, just finding out, Rachel's dead, Chloe and Max just at the junkyard, just crying, and Max comforting her, it's it sucks, man. It's just, ugh.
Um, and yeah, it was interesting too though that was pretty divisive in the community as well. Speaking from a meta standpoint, because what they show is Rachel in a blue body bag essentially,
Yeah.
and so there was a lot of, well, is this really Rachel? Is it someone else? So there was a lot of back and forth with that, but it was confirmed to be in fact Rachel.
Yes, because it was because Mr. Jefferson actually killed Nathan the same day that Chloe and Max found Rachel's body, and
Right.
Jefferson used Nathan's phone to actually lure Chloe and Max to the same, to that spot in the graveyard at the end of episode 4.
Right.
But I kind of love the way that when you get the text from, Jefferson, saying that it'll be last you see of her. I love Chloe's determination to go back to the junkyard.
Right.
To make sure that Rachel's still there.
Right.
Just shows how much of a bond that they truly had. Before she went missing and everything.
Right. Even after finding out she was dead, she wasn't going to let anything else happen to Rachel, and she certainly wasn't going to let the evidence of her death. Like, she was very much wanted Nathan, as who it was believed at the time, to be held completely responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it seems what's his name? Logan? Anyway, one of the minor characters mentions that Rachel was kind of like in with all the cliques in the high school at Blackwell.
Hayden, right?
Yeah, that's
the guy, who's kind of like the rep for Vortex Club.
Right.
Yeah, that was... Rachel is her own kind of thing. I kind of remember him saying that.
So looking at what the characters have to say about Rachel, it seems like Rachel, legitimately was like just a good person to people. I mean, she certainly had her flaws, of course, but I mean, she was even, with oh my god, I can't believe that I'm going blank on names.
Oh dear.
Um,
Quick, describe them and I'll help.
Oh, we said it in the intro. the drawing. Daniel, Jesus. Okay, I'm sorry, listeners. Daniel, even mentions that Rachel was amused to him. Was always like willing to pose for sketches and all that. Sam,
was
even was fond of
the modeling stage of it.
Right.
How Rachel was handing out headshots to almost everybody whether they liked it or not. All that business.
Right. So she was very up and coming. She was very popular, and could have potentially had some success.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So we spoke on it. We spoke on it last episode, but you told Frank about Rachel's death, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Is important.
So you kind of see, I guess, like the full weight of what their relationship meant to Frank in that as well, and you kind of see Frank at, I guess, like his most vulnerable. Talking about that.
It's really terrible because you have the option to tell Frank how she died with the overdose by Nathan, and if you do that, he feels responsible for her death because Frank supplied the drugs to Nathan.
Right.
And with the accidental overdose, he feels responsible for supplying the drugs, which ultimately caused her death, and it's heartbreaking, man. It's even worse, when...
It really is.
Like, I remember watching one playthrough during episode 4 in the, when they're trying to get the logbook from Frank.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually shot him and stuff, and he was like, he said, this is like kind of when I need Pompidou. So I kind of assumed that they actually threw the bone into the street. And watching that, it felt hard, man.
It raises up a kind of I guess a moral dilemma, which goes back to what I love about the morality in this game is that it's not black and white, because life is not black and white. Life is weird, but sorry, I couldn't help it. So you can't help but sympathize with Frank despite, you know, him being ultimately somewhat responsible for the death of Rachel.
As well as threatening you in the second episode, right? But you kind of can turn him around, I guess.
Yeah.
Within episode 4.
Right. So, but even in your playthrough, like if he's just this complete freaking douchebag, you still, at least I couldn't help but still sympathize with him because, like I said, you know, it's like you kind of put yourself into those shoes. He obviously cared deeply about Rachel.
With the photograph in the wallet.
Right.
And just the amount of pictures that she had, well, that he had of Rachel, and like the letter, right? He had a letter in his journal as well.
Right. So I think it the only person that didn't actually care about Rachel at all was Jefferson
And Victoria.
Right. Well, I think with Victoria it wasn't so much like a. I think it was more like a jealousy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also they didn't have a friendship really or anything like that. Like Rachel was kind of the stepping on Victoria's territory, or vice versa. And what do you think about? So we're bouncing kind of around back and forth here, but what do you think about the fact that Nathan at first thought when Max was dressed in Rachel's clothing that it was in fact Rachel?
Well, he did seem kind of happy at first, right? Like he was somewhat relieved.
Right.
He could have possibly thinking that Rachel wasn't actually dead at first, which would have been a huge weight off his shoulders. Because if you think about it, for the past 6 months, Nathan would have been feeling guilty, right?
Right.
Because he accidentally killed Rachel, which is pretty much manslaughter, right?
Yeah.
Someone
I mean,
with no intention. And when Max walks into the Two Wells diner dressed as Rachel, and you go up to Nathan trying to get the keys from Frank, get more information so you can kind of rewind, do your thing and all that. It's just, he seemed kind of disappointed, really, knowing that it was Max. Like he was kind of stuck in reality where, Rachel's dead, and he kind of caused it, and he's somewhat to blame.
Right. So you think he's just kind of in denial about it, or do you think like that he denial that he killed her, or you think that he's just so like messed up from his own stuff that there's just kind of like that disconnect from the reality of it?
Yeah, because if you remember the ending of episode 5, when you go back to the bathroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Chloe pretty much ultimately dies. You can actually see Nathan actually panicking. It's like he really didn't mean to do it. It's like he brought the gun as a precaution because he's that kind of paranoid. What happened? Like what would happen? I need to be, to make sure I'm okay.
Right.
So it's pretty much just a paranoia thing with Nathan, I think. Like everybody's pretty much out to get him.
Right.
That's what I assume anyway. I'm not exactly the best person to.
Right, and not trying to by any means diagnose him with anything.
Yeah.
Or anything like that, but just speculative. I think too. So here's in my head, I guess my head canon, if you will, of how these events went down. So I believe that the night that Rachel died, Nathan has Frank drop off the drugs for him. That late night rendezvous that you find on when doing the detective work with the bulletin board and all that.
Yeah.
With the GPS coordinates and stuff. So I think that he gave her too much. She overdosed. And of course he panicked. I'm thinking there's probably either from himself or something that Jefferson did. I'm sure he called Jefferson and said, "What the hell do I do? You know, I messed up. You got to come here." So I don't know. We know that Nathan is a heavy drug user. So I don't know if he got high or if Jefferson drugged him to kind of like keep him from freaking out, so that he could take care of, so he could like, you know, clean up his mess or whatever. But you have the picture that you find of
Rachel and Nathan in the junkyard, right?
Right. I don't believe that Nathan took that himself. I believe that like Jefferson took that of Nathan, having subdued Nathan, whether it be of his own volition or if he, you know, drugged Nathan. And he took that picture to, I guess, to have evidence that, you know, Nathan did this, because he was going to let Nathan take the fall for everything. Should
Yeah.
you know?
It's like
the
if anyone finds out the dark room, they'll assume it was Nathan, which Max and Chloe do, which is yeah. So pretty much everyone was pretty much, well, all the reactions that I've seen during the episode 4 ending, when you find out it was Jefferson all along, everyone was just shocked, because you always assume it's the person in front of the camera when it's actually the person from behind.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of people kind of suspected him, but I still think it was like still a bit of a shock, especially going into episode 5 too. Even though like I was suspecting him, I know a lot of people were suspecting him to have that confirmed, but there's still, it's a bit muddy, the whole turn of events. And you know, we talked about it in our episode 5 episode,
Yeah.
which was the last episode. We talked about it, but so I still think that it comes as a bit of a surprise. It did for me anyway, even though I suspected it was Jefferson. But let's talk about real quick the dough, the
Symbolism of the dough, yeah.
right. So it's not confirmed whether that was, you know, kind of this guiding force that was like, I guess, Max's spirit animal, or if it was in fact like the embodiment of Rachel.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Well, okay, so you see the dough first in episode 1 at the end, if I'm correct. You know, when the dough's guiding you to the lighthouse.
Right.
And then the next time you see it is in episode 2, which is kind of crucial if you think about it, because the dough appears right where Rachel is buried.
Right.
And then you don't really see the dough again until episode 4. And which is when Rachel is found by Chloe and Max, and then the dough pretty much just disappears for the rest of the game, from what I remember. And
it's sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because that's what just as soon as like the dough disappears, when, you know, Rachel is found, it kind of led me to believe it. You know, that the dough were kind of leading Max to try and help find Rachel's body. But once again, not the greatest. I'm not the best at assuming. So
I think this is one of those cool things about the game that I like the ambiguity of it, because it kind of lets people theorize in their own way. You know what? Because I've seen some theories that the dough represented actually just the like Arcadia Bay itself, kind of like, you know, I guess like Arcadia Bay's nature, the woods around it. You know, it was kind of like a manifestation of that, which it very well could be. Like, I think there's some credence to that theory. I don't know if I subscribe to it, but I think there's definitely some credence to it, because, you know, you have Samuel talking about how Arcadia Bay is scared and how all that. It would make sense that that Arcadia Bay would be leading Max through all of these things. So I don't know exactly where I stand. I think more so the doe is like Max's spirit animal, and I want to be like pragmatic with that because we also see, Max has the Jane Doe shirt, and
She has two Doe shirts, doesn't she? Because she wears a Doe shirt in episode 2.
oh right, yeah,
And even with Chloe and the Snow Globe.
right, and and then of course Max takes the place of the deer during the nightmare sequence
Yeah.
in the snow globe. So that's kind of what I tend to believe is that is more a representation of Max, or a spirit animal of Max, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy to think about, really. All the speculation, but the Life is Strange community is pretty much great about theories, and we'll pretty much touch more on those in a future episode, hopefully.
hmm Yeah, it's good stuff to think about.
Yeah.
And of course, if you guys that are listening, you folks, if you have something that you want to add that you think that maybe we're missing on, you want to give us something to think about with it, feel free to let us know
In the comments, or you can always let us know in the contact information in the credits as well.
Right.
So, one last thing that I'd like to talk about before we move on to Everyday Heroes and all that stuff is the alternate timeline when Chloe is paralyzed because
Right.
of the complete 180 relationship with Rachel that Chloe had, no idea who Rachel was.
Right.
And it's kind of, well, it's more speculation again, really. Since William never passed away, Chloe, grew up having a father and everything, kind of leading a happy life until the car accident, meaning that kind of like Rachel, like Chloe, didn't go out to find problems for like the pain that she felt for like the loss and the mourning and all that stuff. That means she didn't like find out Rachel. So I kind of can understand why that chain of events kind of happened when you save William's life, when you go back in episode 3. And it probably leads to one of the most heartbreaking moments in episode 4 when you find out that Chloe does not like the word hella.
Right. Yeah, so that is interesting too. And then also, the fact that Chloe got paralyzed and was essentially unable to attend Blackwell, to continue attending Blackwell because of, or I guess I should have looked this up, but so you read the letter in her drawer in the alternate timeline, and I believe it was like that she couldn't keep attending, but it might have been that she wasn't accepted in the Blackwell because they didn't have handicap. But regardless, anyway, so the point being is that she wasn't even at Blackwell to meet Rachel during that. So that completely just removes her out of the picture, and or it removes Rachel out of Chloe's life, out of the picture of that during the alternate timeline.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to think about when Chloe mentioned Rachel and she didn't even know her name.
Right.
But still, Rachel is just such an interesting character, even though that we'd never directly meet her. I mean,
exactly.
Because we find out so much, but yet so little, about who she is, what she meant to people, and ultimately what happened to her throughout the game.
And hats off to Don't Nod for, even though Rachel was essentially just a character foil to Chloe, they still gave all this lore. They still gave her like this entire backstory to find out through talking to other characters and all that,
and finding different documents and everything.
Right. So I think it's really cool that even though even though she doesn't technically exist in the time frame of us playing this game, she's still a very prominent role in the game.
Yeah. I mean, just even when like Max said, Rachel's name for the first time, it was just like I somehow knew that Rachel was going to be important to the story, even though it's just like a poster on the wall. But yeah, Donut did an amazing job on that side of the spectrum. Anything
So
else?
shall we move on?
Is there anything else you want to add before we move on, or?
I think we've pretty much hit on everything that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it's probably time to move on to Everyday Heroes then.
Right.
So a reminder.
So you want to?
Sorry.
I was just going to ask if you want to do yours first, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just basically a quick reminder to, if you don't know what Everyday Heroes is, it's a short segment that we have where we talk about pretty much the community and the highlights of the artwork, the cosplays, pretty much any medium that they have reduced. And I'll let you start off this week, Joey.
Okay. Well, the image that I chose is of course it's Rachel.
Yeah,
because the spirit of the episode. This particular piece was done by Cloud Nixus, is their username on DeviantArt. Yeah. And they've posted some of this series on Reddit, on the subreddit off and on, and I really liked it. And what I like, I think I'm a sucker for kind of the symmetry type stuff, and I've seen a lot of good I guess just aesthetically pleasing in that sense. So I like the photographs kind of circling up, making the antlers above Rachel's head, but it's all symmetrical. And then, of course, another excellent example of getting the details right. And so just and the colors too. I like the colors a lot.
Yeah, and the detail in like each Polaroid as well. It's kind of got like the light exposure, and just it's done really well. And I like the expression in her eyes as well.
Yeah,
kind of like looking for hope, all that.
Right.
Business.
Right, kind of almost like I don't know how to explain. I know there's a word for it, but I'm doing a terrible job at using my words tonight. You kind of get the sense that it's, at least to me, like the expression. There's like a certain sadness that you see in it, but also like, I guess like a final deliverance. Like I can finally rest at peace once, now that they've found out what happened to her and all that. So there's a lot. I don't know. There's just like a lot in those eyes, a lot in the expression. So I don't know if that was what they intended, or if it's just how I'm interpreting it. But either way, I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my piece is Rachel Amber, and it's by Popover Jr. on DeviantArt, and it's pretty much just a portrait of Rachel. But this artist has been posting their art on the subreddit, I believe, with Chloe. Like I think the title of their Chloe piece is like Chloe Priceless.
Mm-hmm.
But this Rachel piece is just beautiful because I love the detail in the eyes and the hair, as well as the fabric on the shirt, as well as the feather earring. Just
The photorealism, the photorealism that they're going for is really cool too, especially considering there's not an actual in-game model. So I think comparatively, I don't know what image they used or if they even use an image to reference this while they were doing it, but comparatively, it's really close to the pictures that we see, and
yeah.
right, and so I would imagine that this would be, were she a real human, were she or even just a character model, this would have been pretty much exactly what she would have looked like.
Because there are fan-made game models out there, which are pretty good, but unfortunately they're not official,
Right.
which is kind of a letdown, but they're really good. No offense to the people that made them or anything, it's just, if we got an in-game model of Rachel apart from that body bag, it would be nice.
Right.
And,
I think there was a lot of people that wanted that,
yeah,
that expected it at least, to see Rachel.
Yeah, and just even to see, or even hear her voice, I guess, because it'd be nice to hear what she would sound like if she caused that much impact onto so many people like Chloe, Frank, Nathan, all those people. It'd just be nice to see or hear
Right.
in that case.
Right.
Yeah. So if you, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, somebody pointed out the bird that the feather is from. I don't remember what it was, but I love the no, it's not a blue jay. Like someone found the exact breed of bird that it was. But anyway, I was just gonna say, on this image too, I absolutely love just the vibrancy that they used for the earring, and the colors in it. I guess I'm a big color guy.
Mm-hmm. I love the hue.
Right. So well done. Very well done.
Yeah.
And thank you for letting us use it.
Mm-hmm. And if you have any art that you would like to submit, please email it to us at blackwellpodcast@hotmail.com. And we will look into it. And hopefully we will use you in a future episode. Just fingers crossed.
Please.
And
please do submit to us.
Yeah, just keep working away at the community art, because we just love seeing the community, fan art and the cosplay, just expand. Because me and Joey were talking recently that the subreddit for Life is Strange has grown 10,000 people, 10,000 followers within the past 2 months or so.
Something like that, yeah.
Which is just crazy. This community just to grow, to see how many people actually love this game as much as we do, which is great.
It's very exciting to see. Speaking of exciting, it's announcement time.
So, if you don't follow us on social media, A, what's wrong with you? And B, yeah, we have been teasing at an announcement for this episode. And the announcement is in video format. So, we'll just take a minute and
take a look.
Watch. So yeah, that's happening.
Yeah,
Don't ask how we
exciting
did it,
stuff. Mind blown.
but we were able to get Dayan for an interview on Monday, the 7th of December, which is just I'm not even sure how we did it, to be honest. But we are super excited for her to have her on the show next episode. So this is where we need you to come in. Since we want the fan interaction of the podcast to kind of increase instead of just, us just talking about Life is Strange or you just listening in, we want your questions for Dayan. And you can just email them to us, blackwellpodcast@hotmail.com. But we need them by next Saturday, which is the 5th, if I'm correct.
Correct.
And yeah, we'll try to get as many questions as we can, whilst we're trying to stay on topic, obviously. And the only really rules that we kind of have is just to keep it clean.
Right.
And,
yeah, keep it appropriate.
Yeah. But if you want to ask Dayan, like, anything, like what's your favorite food, and even ask about any other project that she's been in, feel free, honestly, because we really just want,
I guess we're wanting to engage. That's the whole purpose of the podcast, is wanting to engage. Just kind of, this gives us a venue for us to talk about it, which we love doing, and also to engage with everybody in the community. And now, we get to talk to a voice actor, so we get
who
to talk to Kate's voice actor,
and Julia and Alyssa.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, this next week coming up, just getting this interview ready is gonna suck. Because we just want it to go well, and hopefully,
right.
It will help. It should go fine, I guess.
Do you want to add to, and we'll get in touch with all of our up until now Everyday Heroes winners, what we're looking to do, what we're wanting to do with this interview, and hopefully we'll have other interviews in the future as well. But also, is any artwork that we choose for Everyday Hero is guaranteed to get a question on the show to Dayan in this case.
Yes.
So we'll be in touch.
Yes. So, yeah, we actually have a prize to give out instead of just mentioning them on the show. So, yay!
Right.
So that's pretty much it. Next week is the interview.
Right.
Not the movie.
So make sure to subscribe to us, to keep up to date with us. Follow us on Twitter. Like our video on YouTube. If you got comments to say, feel free to post them. Of course, keep it appropriate, but
or emails if you want to. Emails. It's a long way around. And yeah, it's gonna be a fun one next week.
Absolutely. So thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yeah, and we will see you next time with Dayan. Bye.
Alrighty. Bye.